Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well,
Shrek is, as we all, I'm sure, know, a series of animated films by DreamWorks that has a bit of a reputation online. I mean, I'm not quite sure if that's a reputation for being bad, which I think would be kind of unfair given that we're talking about one really great movie, one pretty good one that kind of sucks and is boring, and another pretty great one. So I think it would be unfair to call it just a round failure. But as we all know, you know, Shrek is love, Shrek is life, all that nonsense. It's a meme. Shrek's a meme. And that's not the reason I wanted to do a Franchise and Lowe's Shrek episode. The reason I wanted to do that is because there are actually quite a few good Shrek games that I want people to know about. And also because I just love Shrek, okay? I think he's nice. Anyway, let's get started. Shrek Swamp Kart Speedway came out in 2002 and it was developed by some developer called Prolific or something like that. I can't even begin to talk about this without talking about the truly awful presentation of the menus, and that includes the music, which, well, just listen to it. You can start with 8 characters, and there are 4 that appear to be unlockables. I don't know who they are, because I didn't progress that far, because why would I? I don't know who most of the characters are. The gingerbread guy does not look like the gingerbread guy from the film. Anyway, it is... I'm not going to talk about it for long, because it is truly a wretched experience. The frame rate is absolutely awful, like, to the point where you barely sort of can stay in control. You can't see obstacles until they're right up on you. But weirdly enough, having said that, it's really, really easy because the computer players seem to be idiots who don't really use weapons to any degree of proficiency. You know, it's a Mario Kart clone, but it's a really bad one, especially on a system like this, which has an actual Mario Kart game as well as Konami Crazy Racers, which is excellent. So, yeah, Shrek Swamp Kart Speedway, it's a big pile of shit. Developed by Tosei, released in 2002, is Shrek Hassle at the Castle. Castle, obviously. Hassle at the Castle. I don't even know. It's interesting that this was developed by Tosei, because when I looked that up, I was like, where do I know them from? And I looked into it, and they've worked on quite a lot of really, really good games, and you know, this is not one of them. It's not horrible. It's not horrible like Swamp Kart Speedway is, but it ain't great. It's okay. It's pretty decent. It's basically a sort of super deformed Shrek side-scrolling platform beat-em-up with the emphasis on the beat-em-up, except there is really no beat-em-up engine. You basically have like a single punch and a raw attack, which is like a screen clear, which you get for beating up enough enemies. You know, I can't really... Like I said, it's difficult to talk about because it's kind of middle of the road, but I would say you're not going to hate it. If you have like only this to play, you'll probably be okay with it. It's put together pretty solidly. It feels okay. Like the way that you move around is totally acceptable. There aren't any major obvious problems with it. It's not horrible like all the Ren and Stimpy games were. But it's nothing too special. It's difficult to recommend. It's definitely above average for a licensed game, though. It's a decent little title. The graphics with their super deformed style can be cute and they can work. Like, I think Shrek looks quite appealing in this game, but Donkey looks ridiculous because he's basically just got a small body and a massive sassy donkey head, which doesn't work. It doesn't work for his kind of character style. As you play through, you can get other characters to play as, but they kind of handle basically the same. Yeah, it's not a horrible time. Much better than Swamp Kart, but there are better ones to come. Shrekwreaking Havoc, reeking like, because he reeks, because he smells like shit, because he's an ogre. Oh my god. This was also developed by Tosei, released in 2003, and it's a big improvement. It's ostensibly the same kind of gameplay, but there's a little bit more to it. Like, you can sort of do actual combos now. You can explore a lot more. There's a lot more to find. There are buildings you can enter. There are more alternate routes on the stages. They're a lot less straightforward. It's still pretty simple stuff, but they've really sort of amped it up, which is appealing, and it works. It's pretty good stuff, honestly. It's the first one on this list, I would say, is probably worth playing, although your mileage may vary, because as well you know, if you're a regular viewer, and if you are, thanks, I tend to give stuff kind of an easy ride, I suppose. I feel like, you know, video games are so fun that there's no point looking for things to hate about them, and, you know, if you want to hate a game just because it's a certain license, then, you know, more power to you, but, you know, I'll play Shrek games, I'll play, like, lots of DreamWorks games, even though I don't like the films, because the games are good fun, and this is one of them. Although I do like Shrek, so that's kind of a moot point. Anyway, yeah, Wreaking Havoc, good stuff, and I want to just highlight something, which is the end of the first level, you fight a sort of evil Pinocchio, and it's like genuinely creative, and it really made me smile. You hit him enough and he falls to pieces and you think it's over, but then his legs start sort of marionetting around and trying to kick you up the arse. And then once he reforms, he starts using his growing nose to hit you, and it's like, I like to think that he's standing there and he's just thinking the most vicious lies that he can in order to get this propulsive nose attack to strike you right in the belly button. But no, it's good stuff, and it's probably worth a look. Shrek II, released in 2004, developed by Vicarious Visions. This one and its kind of sequels, I want to say, they're the reason I wanted to make this video, because there's something that I think isn't really covered online at all, is Vicarious Visions' output of DreamWorks and Disney-based games. Because I feel as though they went above and beyond in making their games in a way that wasn't really strictly necessary, and in a way that I appreciate. You know, they're not masterpieces, they're still simple platform games, but there's an effort in the design of them that, to me, I appreciate. It stands out to me. The Shrek 2 game is not an exception. It was the first one that made me go, these guys are, like, putting the hours in on these games, you know? You can play as Shrek, Donkey, and Puss in Boots, who all have different kind of abilities. Like, Shrek can't jump very high, but he can lift up heavy objects, and he can do the most damage when fighting. Donkey can jump higher and further, and he has a sort of kick that he can use to move objects around and break down certain types of obstacle. And Puss in Boots is kind of more agile. He can climb walls like Mega Man X style, by jumping against the same wall, and he has these sort of sword attacks that are fast and easy to use. So, I mean, if that was it, that would be one thing, but they make these levels that are almost like, you know, a really light version of Lost Vikings, in that you have to use each character's skills to help the other characters to get around by, for example, hitting switches to open doors, or picking up objects and bringing them back for other characters to use, in a way that's, while it never threatens to become really challenging, it's not completely derisory. You have to think about some of the puzzles. Like, there are ways to lock yourself out of collectibles if you're not careful. I mean, you can go back and get them, there's no missables, but it's a surprisingly well put together and thoughtful game. And, you know, Vicarious Visions made games based on, like, really shocking licenses, like The Lion King 3, for all things, and DreamWorks, like Madagascar Penguins, which is actually probably their best game, which is an astonishing thing to say. And I really enjoyed all of them, and I like 100%ed all of them. It didn't take me long, just like a few hours, but I didn't feel like my time had been wasted. Incidentally, before I move on to the next one, the game on console of Shrek 2 is also excellent, and I genuinely recommend that one. It's a really fun multiplayer, sort of almost Lego-esque, but there's more. The level designs, to me, as much as I like the Lego games, the level designs often feel a bit rote, and in the Shrek game they don't. They feel a bit more interesting. So, yeah, if you've got some friends, you feel like playing some Shrek 2 on GameCube, Xbox, PS2 is worth your time. I believe it works on Xbox 360 backwards compatibility as well. In fact, I can see myself doing an episode later about, like, Xbox 360 or Xbox Shrek games as well, because there are quite a few. So look out for that one. Shrek 2 Beg for Mercy was released hot on the heels of the previous Shrek 2 GBA game, also developed by Vicarious Visions, and it's actually even better than that one. For some people, you're all going, well, that's not saying much, but, you know, I dug it, so piss off. Beg for Mercy focuses more on Puss in Boots and his gameplay style, which is your more robust kind of platforming, double jump, overhead, hang, climb walls sort of thing. And it works. It works well, because what they've done is they've almost made a Shrek 2 The Lost Levels thing, because while there are still levels where you play as Shrek and Donkey, it's much more focused. There's less co-op stuff, which is a shame, because that stuff was fun, but at the same time, it does lend the game a much tighter kind of style. So most of the time you're going to be platforming as Puss in Boots, and the platforming has been really sort of stepped up in my opinion. The level design is a lot stronger, and it was good before, but now it's like downright decent, so I quite like that. Yeah, it's a good little game, and you know, if anything lets it down, and honestly the preceding one as well, which I forgot to mention in my little coverage of it, the graphics are really saturated in the way that some GBA games were, I think, because they may have been either just on the very cusp or even prior to the release of the SP. I don't know when the SP came out. I think it was about 2004. I could be completely wrong on that, but a lot of the early games were super bright, like, for that reason, because they'd learned the lessons of the original hardware, but they hadn't quite got to the new hardware. So it's a little bit ugly, but, you know, some people just don't like pre-rendered sprites, and I'm not a fan of them necessarily, but I'm not too bothered because it kind of fits the feel of this game and the aesthetic it has going on. So yeah, Shrek 2, Beg for Mercy, or Pray for Mercy, whatever it's called, I forget. Pretty good. Shrek Super Slam, released in 2005. I don't know where to begin with this one. It's a Smash Brothers clone, so to speak, but your character is so large on the screen, and the opponents move so fast that, well, this footage you're seeing here, now normally I use sort of footage from long plays, World of Long Plays, but this time I recorded my own footage because there wasn't really any decent Shrek Super Slam GBA footage. Probably because mercifully no one bought it, but I mean, this footage is me playing. I recorded this myself, and you know, I'm not trying to make a meal of things. I played for a long time to try and figure out how to play the game, but without the manual. But I couldn't. I couldn't figure out how to play, and I mean, I think I basically had the idea. I knew what the controls were. I had the game down, so to speak, but it was so hard, and this is like level 1, and I just get my butt handed to me by these 3 computer players just constantly slamming and knocking me about, and the sheer imprecision of the controls. It's really hard to get across here, but I think by watching it you can kind of get an idea for just how awkward this game is, and honestly, it's got to be one of the worst ones I've ever covered on here. It's beyond wretched, it's aesthetically wretched, it's ugly, it's sin to look at. And it plays like a complete dog, so no, I've got nothing good to say about this one at all. Frustratingly, the big boy version on the GameCube, for example, is a really good Power Stone clone, which genuinely is excellent. I would recommend to anyone, but this is just garbage. It's really bad. Shrek Smash and Crash Racing was released in 2006 by Taurus Games, and a very interesting game because, for one thing, it's not a kart racer, so to speak. It's closer to something like Super Off-Road or Micro Machines, or I would say the closest analog it has is something like Rock and Roll Racing on the Super Nintendo. It's difficult to recommend, but it's hard to call it bad because once you do get a handle on, well, the handling, it's pretty fun to play. It's got some big problems, like the graphics are just hideous, to be honest. The presentation isn't very good at all, and it's slippery and difficult to get a grasp on, and also there's no mini-map, so you can't tell where your opponents are at any one time, which is sort of... I don't feel like that works as a tension builder. I think in a game like this you need to have some vague idea of how far ahead you are, because you can't look in your rearview mirror or anything like that in this kind of game. You just have to hope that they're not right on your tail. I'm sure people will disagree with me on that one, but that's just my take. So, it's a pretty bog standard isometric racing game, but there's plenty to unlock and lots of courses. You know, it's okay. The saddest thing about it really is that in multiplayer this would probably be quite fun on a TV, but you know, you're not going to get that because it's GBA, and I don't even know if this has link cable racing. I mean, if it didn't, that would be absurd, but nobody's going to buy 2 copies of this anyway. You know, no one's going to buy this and go, hey, this is great, I want to play it on multiplayer, even though it would probably be quite fun. Oh well. Last of all, we have, released in 2007, Vicarious Visions again with Shrek the Third, which is very much in the vein of its Shrek II and Beg for Mercy games, though it's been streamlined a little bit. There's more focus on the co-op aspects of the game now, like most of the levels have some manner of interaction between the 2 characters, and there are more puzzles in the game, which actually I would say is a good thing, and really does expand on the gameplay to some degree. The level designs are a little bit more expansive and interesting than they were in the first Shrek 2 game, and not so much in Pray for Mercy. The collecting has been pared down. In the first 2, you have to collect 40 coins in each level to get 100%. When you get 100%, I have to add, there is a reward. It's not a great reward, but they did actually make the effort to make it worth doing, to some degree. In Shrek 3, there are 4 hidden items on each stage, usually fairies, although it changed into something else on the last world, which I was about to say I won't spoil, but you know, it doesn't really matter, so I don't bother like going through the game to look for it or anything unless you really want to. But if you get all the fairies, you can unlock new abilities for your characters. They're not massively interesting, but they do make the gameplay a little bit more enjoyable, I would say. It's pretty short. It feels shorter than the first 2 games, though I think it has the same sort of number of levels, but it's just all a little bit straightforward. There's nothing that's really that hard to find. The last level, to some degree, the teeth come out in terms of hidden objects, but the difficulty of the actual straight-up gameplay never really gets going at all. It's, weirdly enough, even towards the end of the life of the GBA, this game has that same saturated look that's really kind of ugly. It's not a good-looking game, and I would recommend either of the other 2 Shrek games over it, to be honest. Shrek 2 or especially Beg for Mercy. And also, I just want to add at this point, Shrek the Third is a terrible film. It really is. Don't watch it. Really, really bad film. So that's Shrek on GBA. There's a lot of them. I was quite surprised going back to them. But the main reason I made this is I wanted to draw some attention to the licensed 2D platformers that Vicarious Visions made during that era. Other than the Shrek games I've mentioned, I'm just going to give quick props again to Madagascar Penguins, which is legit really good stuff. I really enjoyed that one. Lion King 3, or Lion King 1 and 1/2 as they called it in America, I think, or over here, or something. That's a pretty good one too. It has some of the co-op play going up, but there are also some quite fun auto-scrolling chase levels, and I realise I just said the sentence quite fun auto-scrolling, which some of you is probably like garlic to a vampire, but they also made a game called Bruce Lee Return of the Legend, which is hideous to look at, but plays quite well and has quite a decent semi-robust combat system in addition to a lot of different sort of stealth mechanics that are good fun. So I recommend giving them a look, and as for me, for the future, I want to bring Video World back very soon. I'm in a position where I can do that, but there's still one thing I need to do, which is quite hard, and that's the reason I haven't got around to it yet. I might as well come sort of full disclosure, really, but there's going to be a new opening sequence, and I need to storyboard it so it can be done, and I don't want to put it out until that's ready. So I have a vague idea that I might do a special in the meantime to keep it in out there, but I've got more Franchise and Low stuff I want to do, and I've got other stuff I want to do too. So I know I say this at the end of every video, but you know, I hope you look forward to what's coming, and you know, I hope you enjoyed this one as well. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. I have got a Patreon. If you like this and other stuff that I make, you might want to throw me $1 or something, and I'll spend it all on pop, most likely. Thanks.
Hey now, you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star, get the show on, get paid.